So I'm trying to get this functioning here. Okay, so there's still a little bit of an echo, and I don't like that much, but hi, AP. Long time no see, butternut squash. All right. Let's go to IMDb. Okay. Don't worry, I'm going to do an intro. I wonder if you can start a video at a certain point. I think you can. Go up a little bit more, you think? I don't know, I can't go up any higher. It's as high as I go. There we go. Okay. Ready? I'm going to lower my volume because I don't need to hear myself. Hello everyone and welcome to Gremlin Lord Live, episode 11, Valentine's edition. Today we're going to be talking about some romance films in varying degrees. Slasher romance and even a horror romance. If you're watching this as a VOD, you can go ahead and click in the video description down below and that will have the timestamps for each review. Otherwise, watch the whole thing. It can only help me out. I do look abnormally short though, don't I? I look abnormally short. There's all this space up here. I don't really know how to remedy that, to be honest. That doesn't actually do anything because I'm leaning forward. Oh, you know what I could do? I could tilt it down. Sorry, I'm in mute. There we go. That's better. Yeah, all right. You get a little chesticle action there. I don't know why I didn't remember that. But anyway. Okay, so our 4 movies today are Hard Eyes, Love Hurts, Mamma Mia, and Wolfman. All of which have themes of romance, family, things of that nature. Yep. Here is your agenda. It has begun. Beaming right into your homes. All right. So, our first movie we are going to talk about is the one that I probably like the least out of all these movies, surprisingly. And that is Heart Eyes. For some reason, Hard Eyes did not resonate with me whatsoever. Hard Eyes is rated R. Here is the description of it from IMDb. For the past several years, the Hard Eyes killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. I know I always say Hard Eyes because I don't pronounce the T's like that. But enunciating it sounds weird. Heart Eyes. Like there's like a weird pause. Heart Eyes. So basically you have a masked killer who kills people on Valentine's Day. That's basically what the movie's about. I was expecting a kind of retro slasher film that's centered around Valentine's Day. I was hoping it was going to be better than Thanksgiving, Eli Roth's Thanksgiving that came out. Was it last year or the year before? Because that wasn't fantastic. This was actually worse. And I don't normally dislike movies like this. Let's talk about it. So, you have a main character, lady. Yeah, Thanksgiving was just only okay. I didn't like it. Didn't know what it wanted to be. Is it a dark comedy? Is it strict horror? Like, they had really horrific things in it, but then it would throw a random joke like, "Oh, you're getting stuffed now" in it, and it's like, okay, bud, fantastic. So this movie I thought was just gonna be a straightforward slasher, but with a Valentine's twist. However, it was not. Let me get my Valentine's ring out. Oh. That's what I had it on my thumbnail, so I'm gonna put it on. There's my Ghostbusters thing. We'll put that back there. It was a remake of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Thanksgiving was? There's already been a remake of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Which I think they're doing a continuation. There was a TV show too, wasn't there? I don't know. Let's focus up here. Focus up. Somebody's watching this in the VOD. And they're gonna like, why is all this side conversations happening? So you have your main character, who I'm looking up her name right now because I don't even know her name. And for some reason, IMDb doesn't list her as the #1 character. Isn't that crazy? It's not her. Well, I mean, it's the same idea, yeah. Her name is Allie. She's played by Olivia Holt. That's who she is. I never seen Olivia Holt. She was in Cloak and Dagger TV series as Dagger. She's been in a couple other, well, not a couple other things, other things I don't recognize. She's still fawning over her ex-boyfriend, kind of stalking him on social media. She works in an advertising firm for a jewelry company. And, she's very not happy. Ooh. Let's rewind a little bit. So when the movie started, it was a influencer couple at a winery, and they're doing like not a fake, but they're doing their wedding engagement, and they want to get the perfect sunlight, the perfect music, and all that stuff. It's very fake and cheesy and corny, which I liked because it's what influencers do in that way. So I was like, okay, it's gonna be nice to see these people get, slashed to bits. And sure enough, the killer comes and slashes them to bits. And the killer disposes of them in very creative ways. I enjoyed it. A+. And I'm like, all right. I'm digging this. It looked cheap. Like, I mean, this movie probably has a really low budget. It did look cheap. Like the lighting and the camera angles and stuff like that. It just gave an air of being inexpensive, which is fine. It doesn't have its budget on IMDb. But anyway, I'm assuming it's not a bunch. But then after that, things took a turn for the surprise, and in my opinion, the worst. So we meet the detectives, who are played by Devon Sawa, he played the young guy in Final Destination, the first movie. So I recognized him. And then the other detective is played by Jordana Brewster, who's from the Fast and Furious movies, who I haven't seen. But their characters' names are Hobbs and Shaw, which are the characters' names from Fast and the Furious. And it was like a little joke in the movie, and somebody brings it up. And I was just like, that's kind of an obscure joke. I know the Fast and the Furious is like $1 billion franchise, but they've also had like 11 movies. But it's like no one in the theater laughed. There were at least 8 or 10 people in my theater. I don't know if they didn't get it or they just didn't think it was funny. I didn't laugh because I didn't think it was generally funny. It just felt weird. And the way the conversations were happening at the crime scene and the way they were acting like overly dramatic detectives, like, oh, there's a crime here. I found the clue. And I was like, oh my God, what the heck is going on in this movie? I was like, is it gonna be like a spoof type of thing? Like, it's gonna be like a scary movie type of situation? Like, what is this? And it kind of continued like that for a while. And then we meet our main character, Allie. She's at a coffee shop. And then it turns into a Hallmark movie. You know, she goes to get her coffee, and a sexy guy grabs the coffee too. And it's like, oh, that's my order. It's my order too. And it's like, what is this movie? And there's like that, you know, that Hallmark filter where everything's kind of a little slightly foggy looking, like a soap opera. And it's like, and then there's some slapstick humor injected as well. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm guessing this is going to be a rom-com type of slasher, like combined together. And no one was laughing. Like, I may have chuckled a few times throughout the movie, like, but never like a belly laugh, never anything like that at all. It was like the movie didn't understand what the movie was supposed to be. Where's my script? I have a script. Not a script, but my notes. It was really just full of rom-com cliches and horror cliches and spoof movie cliches. It was just cliche, one after another. And it didn't make any sense as to why. It could have been a good movie if they would have picked a direction with it. Like, there's a way to do this, and not like Scary Movie, because Scary Movie is like basically strictly spoofy. Like, there's nothing scary in Scary Movie, which is fine. I love Scary Movie. But this, if it would have worked a little bit better, if they would have tweaked some of the humor. I mean, none of it was original humor. Everything was a joke you've already seen. And it would just be mixed together in really weird ways. So they're running from the killer, and the girl jumps over a wall and falls. And then she pops up like a cartoon, like, whoa, oh, I fell. And it's like, I thought this was a dramatic scene. Like, what do you... It was kind of cringy, I won't lie. I was like, ugh. That's the face I made throughout most of the movie. And I was so disappointed because I was like, this could have been something better. I mean, because the kills were fun and creative. I mean, I enjoyed those. Some of them felt like they were done for comedic effects here and there, and I was like, eh. I didn't laugh at any of the kills, but some of them were definitely like, ooh. But again, that's kind of a throwback to slashers. I like the killer's look. I mean, well, at least his helmet. He had a helmet thing. It had like some stitches on it or something like that. And then it had hard eyes. Surprise. As the eyes. And they would sometimes glow. Hi, Mimi. Talk about hard eyes. Which gave the killer like some type of like night vision, but it was red tinted, so we got to see through the killer's eyes a couple times, which was nice. But the killer's outfit was just straight up leather bondage looking stuff. It looked like a mixture of like Wesker and Nemesis from Resident Evil and like Neo from the Matrix. And it was always creaking, like leather creaks, like, you know, that squeakiness. And they were trying to put it in as like a comedic effect sometimes. So like the killer will go, and then you would just hear the like noise, and it's just like, what? It just didn't fit. I didn't like the outfit for it. Um, I like the music in the movie. I mean, it's your regular classic romantic songs. I can't name one off the top of my head, but it's something you would expect. The main character guy, he's good looking, so that was nice to look at a good looking guy the whole time. I'll give you his name as soon as I find it, because I don't actually know his name. Mason Gooding. He played Jay. Apparently, he was in the Scream movies, right? Just give me some eye candy. At least I can just look at him as he butchers this movie. He was in Scream, 2022 Scream, and then Scream 6 as Chad Meeks Martin. Means nothing to me. I've never seen a Scream movie. But yeah. So he's been in Scream. And he has like the charming Hallmark kind of character and stuff. And then of course we get to like the horror stuff where they're being chased. But then they'll have a little moment of like, oh my God, you did so well. Thank you. You know, you're really beautiful when you're sweating. Oh my God. And it was just like, I just didn't care for it. It just wasn't a good mesh of the genres. And it's not the first time. I mean, my review for Your Monster was similar. They also did a bad job of meshing the genres. Lisa Frankenstein did a better job. I did like Lisa Frankenstein, but this stuff. There was a funny character, though, who gave me most of my laughs, and that's the friend, who I believe his name is Monica. She's like dating a sugar daddy, and we don't ever see the sugar daddy, but she kind of talks in, I noticed it about halfway through, she talks in rom-com titles. Like she'll drop the titles of rom-coms in her speeches. So she would talk to her friends like, oh my God, do you think it's Love Actually? It's like, oh, well, you should know How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. You know, like things like that. Not necessarily those, but things like that. She was using movie titles in her conversations. And I was just like, that's funny and clever. And I like that. But unfortunately, she wasn't in it a bunch. She just kind of pops in here and there. I don't recognize anything else that she was in either. I mean, I didn't recognize any of the cast aside from Devon Sawa, because he's from Final Destination. But I'm assuming that's how you say his last name. It's S-A-W-A. Sawa. Sawa. But yeah, it's just not good. The rom-com cliches like Love at First Sight, the weird slapstick comedy, you know, where people are like bumping their heads and oh my God. But then you throw in blood, so it's kind of like slapstick but with violence in it. It was odd. I wrote 90% of the jokes were not funny, and it's true. They weren't funny. I left the movie thinking like, what was this? I genuinely didn't enjoy my experience of this movie. And the fact that the audience also didn't like it. I mean, the fact that nobody was talking, even the jerkwads who stole my seats who were sitting next to me, they didn't laugh really at all either. So it just wasn't good. And I'm seeing like good reviews for it, and it's like, why? How? People are like, oh my God, it's the perfect melt of rom-com and slashers. And it's like, no. Not at all. Let me see. I'm going to look up if I can see its budget. Heart Eyes budget. $18 million. Sorry, I'm thinking of things as I go because there we go. Okay. Because I have like a bunch of movies in my head right now. So about 70% of this movie is nighttime, which makes sense because, you know, she works during the day, she goes on a date at night, the killer is there at night. The killer does kill during the day as well, by the way, but only on Valentine's Day. So, but like 70%, 80% of this movie is nighttime. And it's a lot of the fake blue nighttime where everything's just kind of the blue hue. And for some reason, everything is just so dark. Like they go to the police station, and the police station has like 2 lights on in the entire building. And it's like, it's a police station. The entrances to police stations are well lit, so cops can see, you know, if there's a threat coming in the front door, or see what the situation is when somebody's coming in. So the fact that it was like 2 lights on in the entire entrance of the police station just rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, the least you could do is in these other situations is to give some lighting that would make it feel different. But so much of the visuals just felt the same, because whether you're at a park or at a movie theater, it's all dark. It's just dark, 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 dark. Like, give us some variety with the tones of the colors, you know. Not everything has to be blue tinted. And it was the same thing at the airport. I don't know if you've been to an airport before at night. It's not very dark. It's pretty bright. Especially at the entrances. When you walk in, it's very bright. No, everything was just dark. Just super dark. She's walking into the airport, and it's dark, moody lighting, and I'm just sitting there super confused as to why it's like this. Like, you could have done the rom-com trope of running to the airport, right? She goes in, everything's brightly lit and beautiful, people have flowers, and you know, you could have did all these little rom-com things. Maybe somebody's like running to, you know, how they used to run through the gates to get to their lover to stop them from leaving, and they could have had them getting tased by TSA or something. Just something like that. You know, they could have done something more with it, but they didn't. It was just dark and blue, and not a lot happened. It's just, I don't know. Oh, that's a good complaint. I like that complaint. I have a lot of complaints about this movie. Oof. There was also, I've noticed this in other movies, not just Hard Eyes, but I've noticed that movies have started to add in sound effects into their scenes that don't necessarily fit. And I know you're looking at me saying, Gremlin, I've seen your reviews. You add sounds in all the time. And you're right, I do. But I also don't make Hollywood movies. So it's a little different. Mine are movie reviews, not an actual movie. But the thing is, it just, in this movie specifically, there's like a squishy noise. You know, when you watch a slasher, somebody gets hit and it makes the squishy noise. For some reason, somebody's chewed food, like they choked or whatever, and they spit it out, and then they were digging through it to get something, and it made a squishy noise, like somebody was being stabbed. And it's like, why? And it was super loud. Like, I could see if it was fitting for the scene, but it wasn't. It was like in your ear, and it just wasn't unnecessary. I'm assuming they did it to try to gross you out, but it's like, it's chewed up food. It's not like it's vomit, you know. It's not blood. It's chewed up food, and the person who chewed it up is the person holding it. So it's like, it's not gross. Like, it's not that serious. But I've noticed that happening a lot in movies where they add in these sound effects, including some of the other movies I'm going to discuss, where the sound effect just doesn't fit with what's going on, or it's a sound effect that you hear in tons of other movies, like the Wilhelm scream. I hate the Wilhelm scream. Every time I hear it in a movie, I get super pissed, because it just bothers me to reuse it. I know it's like a staple of cinema, but I don't like it. I don't need to hear in Star Wars and Spider-Man and everything else known to man. So where's my chapstick? I don't like stuff like that. But anyway, I did mention the movie looked kind of cheap. So Generally speaking, I just think this movie overall is a missed opportunity. It could have been something really creative if they would have spent more time writing it and really working out some of these cliches and these kinks. And I don't mean like kink, I mean kinks like in a hose. To really get it off the ground. It just wasn't living up to its potential. I did read that one of the writers also wrote It's a Wonderful Knife, which is kind of on the same bag. But yeah, where's my Jaguar? So to rate it, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna give it a rating, and then we're gonna say if it's a date movie, since this is Valentine's Day. And I know all you lovely people here are cuddling with your loved ones right now as you guys watch me next to the fireplace. Okay. Rating this movie, I am probably gonna give Hard Eyes. I was thinking a 5, but to be honest, 5 is kind of middle of the road, and I think this is less than middle of the road. You know? I genuinely was disappointed with this movie. The twist wasn't a twist. It was very predictable. They revealed the killer, and it's like, oh, cool. Another cliche, you know? I'm going to give it a 4. It's currently sitting at a 6.6 on IMDb, which is interesting. But I'm going to give it a 4. I need to update my movie ranks document after this. Remind me. What are you doing? Stop. Sorry. My Mac started doing weird things. But yeah, so Hard Eyes, 4 out of 10. It could be a good date movie. I mean, maybe if you're really into Hallmark movies, you might find more comedy in it than I did. I mean, as a slasher, I don't think it overly succeeded. Like I said, some of the kills were creative, and I enjoyed those, but they were just things like somebody had got a machete to the crotch. And literally the camera pans up and he goes, oh! Like, really? Like, why are you going like Three Stooges Benny Hill on us? Like, I just didn't enjoy it. Maybe because I don't like the Three Stooges. I don't know. But I didn't enjoy it. So, it could be a date movie if you're interested in blood and bad humor. Then you might like it. All right, what's next? Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the time here. That way I can do the timestamps much quicker tomorrow. All right, so the next movie I'm going to be talking about is a movie called Love Hurts, starring Ke Huy Quan. And surprisingly, they didn't play the song Love Hurts. I was waiting for, Love Hurts. I was waiting for that. Was not in the movie. Very surprised. This is also rated R. A realtor is pulled back into the life he left behind after his former partner in crime resurfaces with an ominous message. With his crime lord brother also on his trail, he must confront his past and history he never fully buried. Rated R. Now, this movie is only an hour and 23 minutes long, which is kind of short. Most movies are an hour and a half at least. And I will say that this movie felt a little short. Some parts felt a little rushed, like the ending felt rushed. It just kind of, you have your final battle, and then that's it. Movie done. There's like a little montage-y thing or something, and then we're done. And that didn't speak to me. I didn't care for that. I thought, you could have added in 5 minutes more of content, It's the least you could do. to let Ke Huy Quan have his moment here as the lead of a film. You know, give him something. Give him something. But the movie has really great fight sequences, which is not a surprise. I mean, Ke Huy Quan used to be a stunt coordinator. Obviously, he does stunts. He is a bit older, though. So that's unfortunate for him that his career, you know, is taking off now. Supposedly he was younger. But it was kind of reminiscent of, like, Jackie Chan movies where there's, like, some comedy in the fights, you know? Where they'll grab a hose and wrap it around your arm and stuff, and you know, there's like they show in the trailer he puts cookie cutters on his hands, you know, and fights with those, you know, things like that. It's creative, it's humorous, and really the camera work is what I really liked in, especially in the fight sequence that's shown in the trailer. They don't show all the camera sequences, but it's done so well, and it was so fluid, and it's just. I was like, all right. Like, it really kind of blew me away, that fight sequence in the kitchen. It was super enjoyable. There was some jokes interspersed, but not a bunch. So it had some chuckles in there. And I was like, ooh, you know, like, like the whole time I was really into it. So I really like that. Ke Huy Quan is great in it. You know, he does something similar to what he did in Everything Everywhere All at Once, but slightly different, where he's the, you know, super positive real estate agent who always has a smile on his face and is always happy and helping people and all that. And then he has this kind of demon-like version of himself where he's ultra violent and beats people with his hands till they die. It's crazy. Yeah, there was quite a few side characters. You know, some of the mercenaries all had like little traits and stuff. There was like two friends that were mercenary people. There was another mercenary who had throwing knives and feathers. Like, they all kind of had their own little shtick, but they also had conversations that we got to see. So the duo mercenaries, they were friends, and they would talk about stuff like their relationships. And then the guy with the knives, he was a poet, and it was interesting. It gave them a little bit more depth, but again, because of the short time frame of the movie, we could have added more to the movie. Not necessarily see more of their stories, but to focus more on the main story, so it doesn't feel like we're losing valuable screen time to these side stories for these side characters. It was a little cheesy, you know. Oh man, my girl left me. What'd you do? She said I'm emotionally constant. Like, it's nothing you haven't heard before, but it worked, and I laughed quite a bit in this movie, much more than I did in Hard Eyes. By the way, I'm gonna give my own video a like. How do you like me now? But yeah, let's see. I like the music in this movie as well. I mean. You know, because a lot of love music is classic music. So you got some Barry White, some 10cc, you know, things that I'm singing along to in the theater as I'm watching this. I enjoyed it. It's not groundbreaking, you know, it's not going to be a film you're going to be like, oh my God, I want to rewatch this. You might want to rewatch like the fight scenes, but you're probably not going to go back to this and to experience the story again, you know. Like, oh my God, what a heartfelt and moving plot line. Because it wasn't really. It was, I mean, this movie was directed by a former stunt person, Jonathan Uesbio, which sometimes happens. Like, the John Wick movies are also made by a former stunt person. And you get great stunts, but it can lead to, if they don't have the vision, it can lead to some less than interesting story. Which the writers write the story, but this director did not write the story. It's written by other people. His co-star, let's talk about his co-star, is Ariana DeBose, who I only recognize from Argyle, which I really liked Argyle. But she plays this kind of the same character. She's, you know, a pretty woman who's a sexy femme fatale, who's good with guns and tasers, and everything she does has like a flourish kind of thing. Her hair always falls perfectly on her face, you know, that whole shtick. And it's like, okay, but it's the same character that she basically played in Argyle, and it's not that interesting. And it felt like her lines were more forced when she would say things like, "Oh, I need the old Marv back. There he is." It's like, okay, we get it. We get it. You're sexy. We get it. You know, can you just have a conversation with me right now? Tell me what's going on. Like, you don't need to bat your eyelashes at me every conversation we have. So I didn't really care for her character much at all. I mean, I feel like she could have been played by anybody, and maybe somebody else might have been better at giving more of a nuanced performance than Ariana did. She does have an Oscar though, so yay for her. So does Ke-Huy Quan. There was also a supporting character played by Sean Astin, Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. He also played in The Goonies with Ke-Huy Quan 40 years ago. And I really liked his scenes. He plays his boss, his real estate boss. It was super sweet. They're very close in the movie. They're like friends, and they view each other as family. And it's very touching, and it made me tear up because of one, the real life aspect of them being friends for, you know, over 40 years, and they're making a movie together again. Like, that's really cute and really sweet. But also the characters were really cute and really sweet to each other as well. So, in fact, I think Ke-Huy Quan just got a star on a Hollywood strip or whatever. And most of the Goonies reunited. Corey Feldman was there, Sean Astin, Josh Brolin. So I thought it was really cool. Anyhow, but yeah, I liked his angle as well. Daniel Wu plays his brother, Alvin Knuckles Gable, and for some reason he loved boba. He was a weird guy too. He was drinking boba the whole time, which is it's funny. I kind of chuckled about that. He's a good looking guy, so again, didn't mind looking at him. You know, it's nice to look at good looking people. Let me see how the other half lives. You know, let's see how attractive people look in movies. There is a Marshawn Lynch is in this movie. And Marshawn Lynch is a football player, right? Or was a football player? He was on the Buccaneers, it looks like, in 2008. So yeah, he was in this movie. He was one of the mercenaries. And he was funny. He had a lot of good lines. I liked him. He was very physical. I'm sure his background. Oh my god. Yeah, his name was Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch. But he was good. He was good. I liked him. It's always odd when you see like sports people try to get into movies, and a lot of times they're not good. You know, Dwayne Johnson rings a bell. Tom Brady rings a bell. Gronkowski rings a bell. You know, but then you get people like Marshawn Lynch did a good job, and I think Dave Bautista is a pretty good actor as well. So, eh. Do I know this guy from anything? I feel like I know this guy, this other guy. I'm pretty sure I know. Oh, is he in Jojo Siwa? Jojo Siwa. Ha! Jojo Rabbit. He's in the Jumanji movies. I didn't see those. I don't know. He's in the X-Files. His name is Rise Darby. I recognize him. I just couldn't place him in anything. Anyhow, there was a fun cameo in this movie that took me completely by surprise. And you may not know who they are. It might just seem like another character in the movie if you don't watch certain television stuff, because it is somebody from TV. So, and it's American TV. Actually, it might be American and Canadian TV. I think it might be Canadian. But you wouldn't know that unless you watch that TV. I'm not going to tell you who it is. But it was funny. As soon as I saw him, I was like, is that so-and-so? And sure enough, it was. I had a good laugh about it. They didn't survive. But speaking of which, there's quite a bit of blood in this movie. Quite a bit of blood, which is fine. It's rated R and it's about crime and stuff, so it makes sense. But there were certain scenes where, like, literally somebody is stabbed at least 15 times in a row. Just, and it's just going. And each time the knife comes out, it's, and I'm just like, okay, all right, okay, it's enough slices. Like, holy crap. It's not a bad thing. It just felt uneven sometimes. You had like normal blood that you would see in fights, and then other times it would be like borderline like gore going on. It was like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that. So I think that kind of works against the movie a bit, because it will probably make it lose a little bit of appeal to people who aren't into a lot of blood. You know, if they didn't have things like that, it would probably have a broader appeal to audiences. Not that you know that when you're going in to see it, but word of mouth, you know, travels. And so we just had a little bit less. I mean, people get shot and there's blood like that. That all makes sense. But maybe not somebody needing to get stabbed 15 times. It does show Marvin's descent back into his old ways. So, I mean, it makes sense, but there might have been a less brutal way of showing that. For audiences, again, I didn't mind. I'm fine with it. Stab away. It's the real sticky, icky blood. So, let's see. Back to the time. Hour 23 is too short. It's just too short. We could have used more background story. They show us a lot of flashbacks with narration by multiple characters. I think at least 3 characters give you narrations on the past. And it just felt like, you know, you could have done more with the past. You could have shown us more. And I'm not talking about like a whole background. I mean, you could give us 2 more minutes of stuff, right? The movie's an hour and 23 minutes. You could give us a little bit more, just a smidgen more, you know? And I said before, the ending was super rushed. You had the final confrontation, as you saw in the trailer, brother versus brother. And after the fight is done, we get probably a minute and a half of what happens next. Well, after the full story of the movie. I'm getting ahead of myself. And that's it. And then the credits roll. Although they did play 10cc over the credits, and I enjoyed that. The Things We Do for Love. So I just sat there singing it to myself. So, but there, and again, so at the end of the movie, there was an introduction of new characters. They were mentioned. They mentioned Russians throughout the movie, but we didn't know anything about Russians. But apparently they're real scary. And it was just like, you could have elaborated on this in the beginning of the movie to give us more context. There could have been phone calls between Russians and this group of criminals. There could have been a flashback sequence of the Russians being mean or something. There could have been more. You could have fleshed that story out a bit more. That's all. I would have liked more. Oh, it felt tacked on. I wrote felt taken on. I was really confused of what that meant. That doesn't make any sense. It didn't have a period afterwards. I was like, oh, it must be an incomplete sentence. But anyway, rating and recommendation for date night. I enjoyed my time with this movie. But again, it could have been a bit more. I wouldn't mind watching some behind the scenes stuff about the fight sequences and things. I think it'll be really interesting to see how they did the fights and all that. This movie's currently sitting at a 5.4 on IMDb, which I think is entirely too low. Plus, that's lower than Hard Eyes, by the way, which I do not support. It's definitely better than Middle of the Road, so it's definitely better than a 5. I found myself chuckling through it. I laughed a bunch. I cried in this movie. I did. I often cry in most movies, by the way, if you didn't know this yet. I did not cry in Hard Eyes, though. But I cried because it was bad. Okay, focus. I'm leaning towards a 7 or maybe a 7.5 because it was enjoyable. I just wish there was more to it to enjoy. I enjoyed the side characters' stories. It didn't feel like too much. I mean, if you saw the trailer, it looks... I thought the trailer did a good job representing how good it looked. So, I guess I'll say 7.5. I can't do halves on IMDb, unfortunately. Do you remember what I gave Love Hurts? A 4. Not Love Hurts. Hard Eyes. Yeah, so 7.5 we'll say. Now, as for a recommendation for date night, I'll give you a thumbs up for that. I'll say yes. As I said before, the ultra violence of certain parts might be a little much. You might have to look away if that's not your thing. But overall, there's funny characters in it. There's a good message about, facing things head on, not running from your past, and, just generally being more willing to move forward. So yeah, I'll give it a 7.5. That is Love Hurts, starring Ki Hugh Kwan. So, the next movie, wrong button, is the only one that did not release recently. That is a bit older. It's from 2008, I believe. And this was a community pick from my bargain bin bag. I pulled out the rom-coms from the bargain bin. I did not include romantic movies like Gone with the Wind because I wanted a funny movie. And this one won in a poll that we ran in Discord, and it is Mamma Mia, the 2008 musical Mamma Mia. Starring with a big, huge cast: Meryl Streep, Amanda Seyfried, Pierce Brosnan, Stellan Skarsgård, Colin Firth, Julie Waters, Christine Baranski, Dominic Cooper. There's a very large cast in this movie. A lot of stars. Obviously, it's a musical based on the music of ABBA, the Swedish band. So Donna, an independent hotelier, which is Meryl Streep, is preparing for her daughter's wedding, Amanda Seyfried, with the help of her 2 old friends. Meanwhile, Sophie, the daughter, the spirited bride, has a plan. She invites 3 men from her mother's past in the hope of meeting her real father. So that's basically the plot of the movie. She invites Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, and Stellan Skarsgård, so Sam, Bill, and Harry, because she read her mom's journal from when she was younger that she had 3 men in a small period of time, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. We're not getting her. So she doesn't know which one of them is her father, because the mother doesn't know which one of them is her father. And she was so sure that if she invited them all there, at one look at these men, she would know which one was her father. Didn't work. Because she shares traits with all of them. I mean, not to mention, it doesn't mean you're going to look like them. You could, but it doesn't mean you will. But as I said, it is a musical with ABBA music. I enjoy ABBA music, so I was on board for that. I did not recognize a couple songs, actually, so I guess I'm just kind of a hit ABBA fan as opposed to a deeper cut ABBA fan. But they're still enjoyable. Where is my document? There you are. There's a really loud bang outside. The characters are definitely over the top characters. I mean, especially Meryl Streep. She's like borderline neurotic in this movie. Like, she's throwing herself around, like, oh my god, these men of my past are here. And it's just like, good lord. But it's meant to be campy. It's meant to be like that. So I'm not opposed to it. It's perfectly fine. It's definitely, it took a little for me to get used to the camp of it, but it is very campy. Even the daughter, Amanda Seyfried, is also a little over the top. The way that yeah, I enjoyed the movie overall. I definitely did. It took me a little bit to get used to, because I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was going to be a musical with ABBA music, but wasn't quite sure how the non-music sequences were going to happen. So Amanda Seyfried was doing the same thing. Like, she was acting like she wasn't the one who did it. Is it? See, I don't get to Broadway very often. I figured it probably would be. But Amanda Seyfried would be like, oh my god, I can't believe all this stuff is happening. It's like, you invited all these people here. Of course it's happening. You did it. Like, I don't understand why you don't understand why it's happening. You got these gears in motion. It was interesting the way that they would, like, how music was incorporated into the movie. I think it was done pretty well. Like, it wasn't like I was waiting for the next song to happen. It would just kind of flow into the next song. And I like that. I thought it was a really creative way of putting music into the film. It wasn't like we were waiting for them to sing Dancing Queen. It just kind of happened. Because they would be having a conversation and it would say things like, you can dance, you can jive, you can have the time of your life, you're not too old. Like things like that. And it would just kind of flow into it. I liked it. I think the cast is very likable as well. I mean, again, you have all these heavy hitters. Streep, Brosnan, Skarsgård, Firth, all these people that you know. Very recognizable people. I like the island. It's very beautiful. You could tell when they're on the island. There were also some scenes where you could tell they were not on the island. There was some green screen stuff that was not very good. But again, this movie is from 2008. We're talking almost 20 years ago now, almost 20 years. So we're not gonna ding them for that, because this is the passage of time. But otherwise, the island is obviously very beautiful. It's I believe, was it a Greek island? I think it was. Very nice. Speaking of Greek islands, the ensemble characters were super funny. Like, so these are the people who live on the island, right? And so at the beginning, they're on the boat with Meryl Streep's friends who are coming over, and you don't know this, but they're just people. They're just people on the boat with him. And then the next thing you know, it's the same people who pop up everywhere, and they're singing the chorus of the songs, and it's just really funny because it's the same people over and over, and they have their costume changes, they have their own like little personality traits and stuff. It was really funny, and I thought I liked that a lot. Again, that's more of that campiness, because that's what would happen on a Broadway show. You have your ensemble cast, and they're usually your background actors. and they're the people who pop up and sing courses. So it makes sense. It was funny though. I enjoyed it. Well, I am curious if these were all like actual Broadway people, or if they were just people from the islands. I don't know. I didn't read too much into it. I will say that for a musical and for singing, yeah, the ensemble cast with their little traits, you know, because you have like, you know, old ladies and men, or they just do fun things, and it cracks me up. But yeah, so the music, obviously I love ABBA, so I'm enjoying the music. But I will say I wasn't thoroughly impressed with most of the singing. Like, I don't see a lot of musicals that have singing. I mean, I've seen Les Mis, the one with Hugh Jackman. Didn't really care for that. I mean, obviously I saw Wicked. We discussed that on the last live. Very impressed with that. And I know these actors are not professional singers. I know that. And that's perfectly fine. Because I think that it works within this movie that not everybody is belting out these songs in the most pristine way, because I feel like it makes it more approachable for the audience, and for the audience to put themselves in their shoes. You know, because who hasn't sang karaoke ABBA before? Well, I mean, I sing it at home, but you know, and I'm sure I sound like garbage. So, not that they sound like garbage, but it just, you know, Meryl Streep singing is fine, perfectly fine. It's just not, you know, she's not a Broadway singer, so she doesn't have, you know, that gusto. Amanda Seyfried was good. I know that Pierce Brosnan got a lot of crap for his singing in this movie, and his singing is not great, I will say. But again, he's doing it, right? He's doing the movie. So I give him kudos for not being afraid to put himself out there and sing these songs. He was pretty flat. Maybe he has an ear thing. I mean, my ex had an ear thing, like ringing in his ears. So when he sang, it was a lot of monotone stuff because he couldn't hear the tonal changes. But I don't know. I don't know about Pierce Brosnan's medical history. But yeah, his singing wasn't great. But I think it was fine. Overall, it's fine because the movie's just so enjoyable that it doesn't really matter that his singing isn't the best, to me. You know, I think it, like I said, I think it makes him more approachable. We talked about that. We talked about that. There is one character's. He's a Cabana boy who is like obsessed with Christine Baranski's Tanya character. And, you know, she's turning him down because he's so much younger than she is. He's a black man. He has kind of a poofy, natural hair. And the thing about his character is that his voice sounded dubbed. Like, completely dubbed. Every single time he spoke, it didn't sound like it was coming from him. It felt like it was added in post-production. And when I think about it, I mean, I feel like they pulled away from his face often as well. So I'm just curious if he was just dubbed throughout the whole movie. I looked it up. I didn't find any results for it. IMDb doesn't have any information on it either. And I looked him up. It says that he's Nigerian. So I don't know if they actually did dub him or not. Because maybe he had an accent and they decided it didn't really work or something. I don't know. Or maybe he wasn't dubbed at all. He just sounded dubbed to me. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Oof. So, when Meryl Streep sings Winner Takes It All, and she's singing this to Pierce Brosnan's character, Pierce Brosnan is just standing there. Like, literally just standing there. Like, she's there, and she's singing and singing and singing, and he's just standing there. You know, he'll do like this, or like this. But it's funny, because it's one of the things that I always said I hated about musicals, was the fact that people just stand around while somebody sings a song. And it was the only song in a movie where that happened. But he literally just stood there. You know, they weren't having a dance sequence or anything. They could have did that. They could have did little moves where he chased her down a bit. Nothing. It was just him standing there while she sang Winner Takes It All. And I thought that was really odd. But I did like the little fantasy sequence they had. There's a song called Money, 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 Money. There's a nice little fun fantasy sequence in that. So this part, the visuals of the movie kind of bug me sometimes with the nighttime shots. So I did read that some of the nighttime shots were actually daytime shots and were digitally changed to nighttime, which I complained about before in quite a few things. But it wasn't that they were like overly blue like they are nowadays. It's that they were overly dark. And there was quite a few scenes where characters are either by themselves or talking to another character, and they're basically just silhouettes. And that's it. Like, you only know who's talking because you recognize their voice and maybe their body shape. Otherwise, they're just a silhouette. And I mean, I've never seen a Broadway play, so maybe that's something to do in the movie, or I mean in the Broadway play while they change scenes or something behind them. I don't know. But in a movie, it just looked really weird and I didn't care for it. It felt odd. Like, why is it so dark? Like, pitch black dark. But, like, the water has a shine on it from, I'm assuming, the moon that we can't see. In reality, it's the sun. But I just didn't care for that visual. Whether it's an homage to Broadway plays or not, I don't know. Did not like it. I did cry during this movie. Of course, namely through Slipping Through My Fingers, where Meryl Streep's singing about her daughter getting older and life moving on, you know, and eventually your child won't need you anymore, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it's a heartfelt moment. Of course, I cried. It was really sad, but loving. There were some parts that were too campy for me that I just didn't really enjoy that much. Part of that is the girl group dynamic of Meryl Streep and her friends, the Dynamos. I know that it's central to the plot, right? I get it. But for me, when they first get to the island and they're on the docks and they're doing like a whole thing, it's not even a song. They're singing it like a cappella. And I was just like, how long is this sequence? Like, we could have shaved 30 seconds off of this. It was a little much for me. It didn't make me hate anything. It just, it was just a little much for me. And again, I get it. It's just camp. I get it. I just, didn't quite enjoy it all. So let's rate it. Mamma Mia. I do have the second. It's right here, actually. It's a 2-pack, so the second movie's in there. Here we go again. And apparently there's talks that there might be a third one in the works. And Meryl Streep has said that she might be interested in it because she traditionally does not do sequels, Meryl Streep. So, but she said that she's interested in it. This is 2018, the second one? It says 10 years after it. I guess that would make sense, huh? I know Cher is in that one. It also led to Cher releasing her ABBA album, which I highly enjoy because it's basically Cher singing ABBA songs. Fantastic. Fantastic. With some slightly updated arrangements. Cher karaoke. Cher! It's good. Alright, so let's give it a rating. Mamma Mia. Here I go again. My. To be honest, I did enjoy it. I feel like it'll be a movie that I enjoy more if I were to watch it again. Or maybe I'd enjoy it more with other people who also enjoy ABBA. But I don't sing in front of people, so it wouldn't. If I was more like Pierce Brosnan, unafraid to sing, I would probably sing it with people. But it was a good time. I think I'm going to give it a nice and lovely, solid 8 out of 10, which is the highest rated movie so far today. It's only at a 6.5 on IMDb, which is crazy to me. I thought, I guess people doesn't mean that. I mean, I know it's a well-loved movie, but maybe people didn't go on IMDb to rate it. So it's a $52 million budget, which is really small considering how many stars are in this movie. And it made $611 million, which is really good. That's a really good ratio. Top picks for you. But these are movies I've already seen. I didn't rate Nosferatu. How did I not rate Nosferatu? Anyway, sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for Mamma Mia. Would I recommend it as a date movie? Yeah. If you and your date enjoy ABBA or are interested in musicals, I'd say go check it out. I think being an ABBA fan would really improve your chances of liking the movie. Otherwise, you'd be like, I don't know these songs aside from probably Dancing Queen. And you probably wouldn't like it as much. All right, better. Have a good night. We got one more movie to rate here. And then we'll see you tomorrow. Are you streaming tomorrow? Or at least Saturday? I know you said it's a 4-day weekend for you probably, because it's some DEI holiday on Monday. Some old white dude died. Now, this says that Pierce Brosnan had no idea what the project was. He just saw it was being filmed in Greece and Meryl Streep was attached. So he signed on immediately. And I mean, I can't blame him. I mean, frankly, I'd probably sign on for any movie. But yeah, enjoyable movie. Recommend. Our final movie of this evening is the more unconventional one. That you're probably like, why is it part of this thing? Well, one, because I just watched it recently and I never did a review for it. And two, because I needed another movie to review. But it also fits in the grand scheme of things. It fits in the rom-com situations. Not rom-com, I'm sorry. Romance and love. And that movie is Wolfman. I know. Horror movie? What? What do you mean Wolfman is included in this? But it is. So Wolfman is what you think it sounds like. About the Wolfman. A family at a remote farmhouse is attacked by an unseen animal, but as the night stretches on, the father begins to transform into something unrecognizable. Rated R. I wrote a little mini review for it on Discord. I'm looking for it at the moment. I mean, I guess I could have did Sonic too, because Sonic has a big theme as well for family and love and all that. I didn't know. Yeah, so Wolfman stars Now I'm kind of confused. Is this the guy, the main character? Oh, he is. He looks so much more handsome in this picture. I didn't even recognize him. Oops. My bad, bro. Christopher Abbott is his name. He plays the father, Blake. Apparently he was in Craven and Poor Things, which I didn't see either of those. Bring Them Down, which is a movie that's currently in theaters as well, which I didn't see. I haven't seen him in anything. It looks like I haven't seen him in a single thing. Nurse Jackie. Anyway, I just didn't recognize him because his IMDb picture is quite more handsome than he was in the movie. Although, you know, he does go through a rather stressful transformation. So, the wife slash mother is played by Julie Gardner, who you may recognize from the TV show Ozarks with Justin Bateman? Ozark. I did not see Ozark, so I did not recognize her from it. In fact, I don't think I've seen her in anything. Oh, it doesn't really look like it, no. And it's funny because I know who she is, right? I know what she looks like. I do know she's going to be in the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out soon. She's going to be the Silver Surfer. She's 7 years younger than me. Okay. Don't now before you get all upset. She's not the Silver Surfer. She's the other. She's an alternate universe Silver Surfer. Because remember, Fantastic Four takes place in a different universe. Anyway, and they have a daughter named Ginger, whose last name is Firth, who I don't think is related to Colin. Oh, she is English, though. Wow. She was born in Leeds in 2014. But she didn't have an accent in this movie. Maybe she was raised in America, or maybe she's just that good of an actress at the tender age of 11 or 10 to hide her accent. Wow. Good for her. Good for her. Anyway, so this movie's about a couple, Blake and Charlotte, who are having some marital issues. So Blake is more of a stay-at-home dad. I mean, I don't know if he has a job or not, but he spends more time with the daughter than the mother does. So the daughter is naturally more attached to the father, and the mother feels left out, and she doesn't feel like she has a connection with her own child. So, makes sense. This movie opens very nicely. So it's in the past. Before we get to that, there's a little info blurb in the beginning where it mentions that it's a Native American folklore about the Wolfman, meaning a man with the face of a wolf or something like that. It has like a Native American word. And I want to point it out because people have been complaining about how he looks in the movie. And to me, it's because he's a wolfman, not a werewolf. Which I know people probably usually assume that they're interchangeable. I just kind of separate those two. Because I think of werewolf, I think of 7-foot monster with hind legs that, have a joint, fingers, claws, hulking, that kind of thing. The Wolfman, I picture a man, a hairy man, like in the classic Wolfman films. So for me, that's what I think of. Whether you think they're both werewolves, that's up to you. But I don't like it. (1941) was when the original Wolfman came out. Sorry, I just saw that on IMDb. But anyway, it starts out in a secluded portion of Pacific Northwest, maybe? Upstate. I'm pretty sure it was filmed in New Zealand. Ugh, 25 million budget, 33 gross. Yikes. A lot. Anyway, and it's really beautiful scenery. It kind of reminded me of like X-Files, how they would be in these forests, which was in Canada. And it'd be like the heavy fog and everything just kind of feels kind of damp. You know, it was really, really a beautiful type of scene. They have mountains and a river and all that stuff. I liked it. And it's a father and his young son, and they go out hunting, and they're trying to track a deer to kill. They live in this secluded farmhouse, and there's a generator that runs. There's bars on all the windows and doors. You know, it's a very secure compound, and you're just kind of curious as to what is this? Is this some type of like Appalachia type of thing? You know, like who are these people? But it's really tense, and it's really well shot, and it's super interesting. And I wish the whole movie was kind of like this. You only see glimpses of a Wolfman. Not that the rest of the movie is bad. It's just this first scene was really pivotal and was really well done and enjoyable. So, I'm trying to think if I wanted to say that, if it's a spoiler or not. It's not really a spoiler. The movie doesn't hide it. So that little boy ends up being the father in this movie. The dad. Our main character, Blake. So, 30 years later, boom, he's an adult. But anyway, so his father dies, and he goes back to the farmhouse to clean it up and empty it out so they can sell it or whatever. And that's where the movie happens. There's a really poignant line in this movie that spoke to me specifically, mostly because of what has happened between my father and I in our relationships in the past few years. And the daughter asks him, why haven't you talked to your dad? And he said, I just didn't want to talk to him. And then now that he's gone, I want to talk to him more or whatever. And it just poignant to me because, my dad was in an accident in September and he has brain damage, and I will never be able to have the same type of conversations that I used to have with him ever again because he could no longer process information like that. And not to get all super sappy on you. And I wasn't talking to him in the first place. He and I weren't talking for years already. But it was just an interesting thing, little tidbit of the idea that you need to be positive that you were okay with not talking to somebody ever again, because it's possible that you may not speak to them ever again. So, personally, I've already made peace with that, so it's not a big deal to me. But I just thought it was a little nice tidbit. Felt poignant in the movie. I liked it. But yeah, obviously they go to the farmhouse, and calamity ensues. The father ends up getting infected with the Wolfman disease, and he goes through some changes. Changes. I really liked how they did the changes. So normally when a horror movie or monster feature film type of thing, creature feature is what it's called, somebody goes through changes, they usually exclaim these changes to you, right? Oh my God, my skin is burning. Oh my God, my nails are broken. Like they're it's all visual and audio, right? They're telling you directly what is happening to them. It might be some body horror of joints popping out and stuff like that. Like they show you that. This took a more nuanced approach to it, where we actually get to experience how this disease is starting and slowly affecting Blake. Just little things, like a tooth falls out. Like why did that happen? You know, or his hearing gets heightened, or he starts to have like night vision, and it's a really cool effect when they show how the Wolfman sees. It's like I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's really cool. I've never seen something like that, and I really liked it. And I think that his transformation worked really well in the movie. And you don't get the full-blown crazy transformation like you do like American Werewolf in London or whatever, or The Howling. Like, you're not getting, those are more werewolves anyway, but you're not getting that full-blown transformation. Because again, this is early in his infection. You know, it's not some waiting for the full moon thing. It's an instantaneous thing. So has a fever, he's aching, he's scratching his own skin raw. It gets kind of graphic. I liked it, but it was like, ugh. But yeah, it was just really well done to show you the gradual loss of his humanity as the movie goes on. And he becomes more animalistic and more dangerous. So now we'll go back to the visuals of this transformation. And like I said, a lot of the complaints were about how he doesn't look like a werewolf. Now, this is a fresh infection, okay? The other wolfmen that we see in the movie, like the one in the beginning of the movie, they're very hairy. Like full-blown hairy dudes. Or hairy dude. And I feel like that's just because that person has been infected for a longer period of time. Because they mentioned in the beginning that a hiker went missing in whatever year it was. And so that person was alone in the woods and would have had more time to develop this virus. And what we see is like the final product of this infection. Whereas in this movie, Blake, the father, we're seeing the beginnings of his transformation. He does get more animalistic looking, you know, his ears change, his eyes change, his jaw changes, stuff like that. But he's still humanoid. He's not full beast. And we see another Wolfman, again, who is more beast. So I just think it just has to do with that. Where eventually, if the movie were to continue, we would see him become full-blown Wolfman. It just doesn't happen in this movie. And I think his transformation is fine. You know, I liked the way he looked. I thought it worked out fine. And I think that he had an aspect, which is why this movie is included in this Valentine special. He had something that the other victims did not. And that is the love of his family. So he's in this farmhouse, you know, his wife is taking care of him, his daughter is concerned. There's always this connection to the human world that is keeping him anchored, that's keeping him coming back. So sure, he might go off into this world of weird animalistic behavior in his mind or something, but then he sees his daughter and he's back again. It just, I feel like it's helping him stay sane, at least sane enough at that point, to keep him from devolving into this animal-like creature. Because the other people who we know who are wolfmen, they were alone in the woods. So they had no one there to help them stay sane. They just basically got infected, started transforming, and, you know, lost their minds because there was no one there to help them. Not that you could stop the transformation, because we're pretty sure you can't. They don't mention any of that, but we know that he didn't, because he transforms. But I just feel like that aspect of family and love for your family, Valentine's Day, is what keeps him human in this movie. and postpones his transformation a bit more because then he can actively try to fight against it because he has something to fight for. So I think it works out really well. And I like that aspect of it. I think that it works really nicely. With the same idea of those relationships, though, I really wish there was more dialogue. There were quite a few times in the movie where Blake and Charlotte didn't really talk to each other. They have a strained relationship, and that's touched upon in the movie, but there were just times when, because they said they wanted to work it out, where I feel like there just should have been more conversation. Like there were just times of silence, and I just didn't understand why we weren't talking. You said you wanted to work out your relationship. Let's work it out. Let's talk. We're driving. Might as well have a conversation about something, you know? Or hey, we're alone. Let's talk about that thing now. It just didn't make sense to me to have so many quiet moments of no dialogue. Later in the movie, it makes sense because obviously he's not in a capacity to talk. But earlier in the movie, I would have liked more dialogue. It felt empty sometimes. The scenes just kind of felt empty and devoid of human interaction. I guess that could be a theme, but it was kind of boring. Not like boring, but it was kind of like, what else you got? So, I already mentioned the really cool camera work. That was really nice. Generally speaking, this movie isn't like a new story. The idea of family holding you together to save you kind of thing. That's not a new tale, you know. But I feel like it was done really, really well in this movie, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm really disappointed that people weren't seeing this movie, that it didn't do well. I think it deserves to do well because I genuinely enjoyed it. The people in my audience with me, not sure how much they enjoyed it, to be honest. I don't think anybody disliked it, but there were some of the transformation things they were like, ugh. I guess the body horror kind of took them out a little bit. There was something else. Oh, this movie takes place at night, and it looked great. You know, night shots looked great. It wasn't overly fake blue night shots. It wasn't super duper dark where you can't see anything night shots. Things were lit appropriately, and I liked that. You know? And obviously when we see through the Wolfman's eyes, that's a really cool, it's like night vision. It's really cool. Super well done. And I gave this movie a 7 when I first talked about it in Discord. I'm not sure if I want to keep a 7. Part of me wants to increase it because I did enjoy this movie. The more I think about it, the more I enjoyed it. But maybe I'm just forgetting something I didn't like. You know, maybe I'm just forgetting something that didn't work for me. The lack of conversation didn't work for me. And the ending was a bit too much like the beginning. Probably could be a little predictable if you think about it. I do feel like the tension in it is a little uneven at times. There were some really great scenes, and then everything else was just kind of there. But I think I'm going to bump it up to a 7.5. I think that works for Wolfman. I'm sad that it won't be anything else with it because, you know, it did so darn poorly. I really just wish there was more dialogue because, I mean, Julia Gardner is, from what I've seen, a good actress, and she can really, she can really give her emotions very well through her speeches and through her lines and stuff. I've seen clips of Ozark, and I liked her her performance is in that. And she's good in this movie as well. That's why I'm kind of looking forward to her being Silver Surfer, because I think she has that kind of a gravitas. Like, she's small, but she has like this fire in her that she can really display to you, and I think it works out really well. But yeah, so we're gonna say 7.5 out of 10 for Wolfman. Would I recommend it as a romantic Valentine's movie? Probably not. I would recommend it as a movie to watch, for sure, but it may not be a movie that you would cuddle to, if you will. The message about family and loving people and telling them you love them before it's too late was a really good message, and that's why it's here in this Valentine's Day stream. So I think that works out really, really well. But yes, that's the final movie that we have to talk about here tonight. How exciting. So if you want to take a quick recap, Hard Eyes, we gave a 4. Just didn't work. Too many genres mixing together, none of them executed well. Love Hurts, we gave a 7.5. Fun, funny, great action. Too short. Hour 23 minutes is too short. They could have used an extra 10 minutes of history or side conversations, something. Mamma Mia, 8 out of 10. Good time. Good visuals, good, decent singing. You know, just really a heartfelt, feel-good movie with maybe a little too much campiness for my liking. And then Wolfman, 7.5 out of 10. Dark, tense, family themes, but kind of lacking in the dialogue department and a bit lacking in the originality, if you will. But yeah, so that is going to be all of those movies. That's Valentine's Day. Tomorrow we may stream tomorrow for Valentine's Day. Not sure what I would stream or if I'm actually going to stream. We'll see. I'm not opposed to it. And then Saturday I'll be streaming, probably with Better. If not, I'll just stream alone. It's fine. We haven't discussed what we're doing this weekend. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching, and thanks for all the likes. We got 4 likes on the live, which I think is the most we've had ever. So yippee for that. And yeah, you guys have a good night. Have a good Valentine's Day. And we will see you again soon. Okay? Bye. I always forget how to end it. Is it the X?